logo. We have entered day 34 of the shutdown. Boo is right. 800,000 government employees have been caught downwind of Trump. 420,000 of them are being forced to work without pay. That includes TSA employees who are relying on mobile food banks and working without pay at airports. The FAA has called safety inspectors back to work without pay to carry on safety inspections. The FDA has stopped some inspections on food, including fruit, meat, seafood, and vegetables. That one's cool because we're all gonna hit our goal weights. Listen, all right? Sometimes a government shutdown puts you on an all-liquid diet. Summer's around the corner. And this shutdown came along just in time to give you a case of that they didn't inspect this properly. You know what I'm talking about. But don't worry, Mike Pence and Jared Kushner have been negotiating a compromise with each other, which is not how it works. Jared Kushner and Mike Pence sitting at a table together, hammering it out, thinking through the details, debating, having differences, settling those differences through the power of logic and reason and argument. Not since Thomas Jefferson and John Adams debated at Monticello has there been a more sparkling colloquy between a bigot and a Harvard kid. So here's where we're at. Trump, or as I call him, Trump, offered that Kushner deal $5 billion for a wall in exchange for a promise that he'd stop deporting Dreamers. It went down in flames Thursday. 6 Republican senators defected to vote with Democrats to reopen the government without that wall funding. Nancy Pelosi, or as I call her, Speaker for life, told Trump he could fuck off on the State of the Union as long as the government was closed. Trump then, or as I call him, what if the car horn on a Porsche Cayenne became a person? No one good has ever driven a Porsche Cayenne. What kind of psycho? I want the douchiness of a Porsche and the douchiness of a Range Rover all at once. I want Porsche prices at Range Rover height. If anyone ever goes on a date and picks you up in a Porsche Cayenne, you just say, sorry, you keep going. Find another sucker. I don't want to get divorced from you in 5 years. No one in a Porsche Cayenne has ever had a successful marriage. Porsche Cayenne. Even the fucking name. Porsche Cayenne. So anyway, Trump says he's gonna go to the Capitol anyway, then Nancy tells him to fuck off again. Nancy, or as I call her, what if a Prada bag with a gun in it became a person? Anyway, Trump blinked, which was cool, all right? Nancy held her ground and it worked. Then, with his poll numbers plummeting, Trump sent out his team of septuagenarian billionaire Avengers to explain to furloughed workers why it's not so bad. Here's a clip.
There are some federal workers who are going to homeless shelters to get food.
Well, I know they are, and I don't really quite understand why, because, as I mentioned before, the obligations that they would undertake, say a borrowing from a bank or a credit union, are in effect federally guaranteed. So the 30 days of pay that some people will be out, there's no real reason why they shouldn't be able to get a loan against it.
So obviously Wilbur Ross has no idea how things work. Wilbur Ross. He should not be a cabinet secretary. That guy does not belong. He should have pea soup in front of him. That is a man who should be very focused on how hot or not hot his pea soup is. He shouldn't be in charge of anything. Look at that guy. And apparently all his money is from stealing. Maybe Republicans are starting to crack, maybe not, but it's so important that Democrats hold the line because either We prove that holding the government hostage doesn't work, or we prove that it does. You know, when Nancy Pelosi said that she wasn't going to let Trump have the State of the Union, people like Kevin McCarthy, they had the audacity to call it a new low. Ripping children from their parents is a new low. Workers, federal workers, paid by the taxpayer having to go to fucking food pantries is the new low. The delay of a ceremony or performance doesn't matter, but for the past few weeks, there's been all this pressure on Democrats to cave, all these pundits saying that they should come to the table and make a deal that all these people are suffering. But that's because the people on television, they don't care about actual reasonableness. They care about the performance of reasonableness. They care about things that look serious, not things that are serious. That's why they care more about people acting civil than the inhumane policies. It's why it matters more when a congressperson says we should impeach the motherfucker rather than the obvious fact that he's a motherfucker who ought to be impeached. Like it's an obvious fact that any sensible person decrying this on television obviously believes when the cameras are off. You know, Trump thrives in an empty culture that celebrates this kind of performative politics. He helped invent it. And what's really exciting to me is I think Democrats finally aren't playing that game anymore. I think we've seen that through the shutdown. I think we've seen that in the conversation about pretty progressive policies in the early part of this presidential debate, and I think we're seeing it in what activists have been doing over the past 2 years, not allowing Republicans to define what's reasonable, because reasonable is not defined by what Republicans can get through the Senate when Fox News isn't looking. That is not reasonable. And bipartisan is not you get a fucking wall to make brown people a scapegoat and we get disaster relief. What kind of a fucking deal is that? And what kind of a deal is made when it is just accepted and understood that the president and Republicans can use federal workers and federal benefits and the FBI and all the things that our federal government does as leverage against Democrats as if it's not all our country and it's not all our government? If we allow them to use the federal government as leverage, they'll do it again and again and again and again. And it is up to us to not let the TV pundits and the people who want to preen about both sides being to blame because they don't want to live in a country where we listen to them. They want to live in a country where we hold the line.